If there's one thing I'd want you to take away from today's build video, it's that there's more than one way to build a decent system for editing 4K video. In fact, like way more than one way. Let's talk about the misconceptions, pitfalls, and practical solutions to parting out a system that you can use for this purpose, and then we're going to see how one performs after we put it together.
Introducing the ShadowRock 3, the newest product from cooling specialist Be Quiet. If you're looking to keep your CPU thermals in check while also running virtually silent, the ShadowRock has you covered. Featuring 5 direct contact copper heat pipes and an offset cold plate design, the ShadowRock provides maximum memory clearance for even the tallest DIMMs. It also looks stylish inside your tower due to the brushed aluminum top plate and black and silver color neutral aesthetic. Check out the link below to learn more or head to bequiet.com.
This video took a long time to prepare and script as I wanted to get you guys some important groundwork information for building a system like this without just laying out a build this rig with these parts type of instruction. I feel that general knowledge is more important for people to know than for them to just be able to recite a parts list. If you guys find this video interesting or educational, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification icon. It helps the channel out a lot. So I get a lot of requests for this kind of video. I'm not sure if there has been a recent surge in the actual need for systems capable of this type of workload, or if people are just interested in what it takes to process high-resolution video. But nevertheless, whenever I do a system build, I'll almost inevitably get a few comments requesting a tutorial on how to build a 4K video editing PC. I've done this kind of video before, although not really recently, and certainly not with the specific focus of a 4K workflow. So it got me thinking about what exactly I should recommend. After all, I've built a lot of systems for my own personal use, knowing that their primary function was going to be this very thing. And it would honestly be really easy for me to just say to everybody out there, just buy the most expensive stuff, it'll work great. It's a true statement, if I guess a little misguided. Of course, everyone knows that pairing a 32-core Threadripper 3970X with 128 gigs of memory and a Titan RTX will yield good results. But that's not a realistic goal for even people who do this kind of thing for a living, at least most of them. The nuance is in what makes a 4K editing PC a 4K editing PC and not just a fancy gaming system with a different name. So let's start there. What does actually make a good editing PC different from a good gaming system? Well, there are 5 main aspects that can differentiate your Fortnite box from my production machine. Number 1 is CPU core count. I did a video a few months ago comparing gaming performance and core count scaling from 4 cores all the way up to 12 cores. You could find that video up there. Yes, there is a difference, but for the most part, we're talking single-digit percentage points. 6 or 8 cores is probably all you really need for a good gaming experience right now. And if we're being honest, you're probably still good if you're rocking a 4-core 6700K. But when it comes to programs like Adobe Premiere, timeline scrubbing and video exporting can leverage core counts all the way up to 32. And I see CPU usage in the 70 to 90% range on my 3960X all the time when producing these videos for you fine folks. And yes, before the DaVinci Resolve people start yelling, I know other software exists, but Premiere is both the most popular one and the one that I personally have the most experience with, so that's what I'll be referencing here. The second thing is memory capacity. For a while, I had 32 gigs in my editing system, and it was mostly fine. But as I got deeper into video production, I saw the need to step up to 64 gigs, and even that was being taxed by some of my heavier edits. Anything involving any kind of motion graphics or Adobe After Effects projects will eat up RAM, and more complex files like videos recorded with 10-bit color sometimes are played back from system memory depending on your storage configuration and how fast Premiere can access your drives. For gaming, 16 gigs of memory will get you by just fine, even for the newest AAA titles. It's quite the disparity there. Number 3 is storage configuration. Most editing software works off of something called a scratch disk. Think of this like a notepad. You could scribble little notes on the notepad and then discard them when you no longer need them. Well, Premiere does the same thing with the video files that it's working with currently in your project. If you don't have a dedicated scratch disk in your system, Premiere will make one on your main drive, meaning that it will be reading files from that drive, writing temporary files to that drive, and running off of that drive. All three operations running off of the same SSD can really bog down performance and grind even the fastest M.2 drives to a halt. Plan to factor in the cost of a fast secondary drive that does nothing but store temporary files, or else you'll see a noticeable performance degradation, especially in timeline scrubbing. Number 4 is CUDA acceleration. Yes, this is NVIDIA specific. Sorry, AMD fanboys. While the Navi 5700 XT might be a great choice for gamers, when it comes to production work and specifically video editing, you want to be working with Team Green. Premiere can leverage both graphics cards for hardware acceleration of certain tasks. It's just that NVIDIA's CUDA cores are just so much better at it. However, there is a caveat here. GPU accelerated tasks are limited to things like transitions, image resizing, time remapping, and color adjustments. If your edit is just a basic timeline with few or none of those things, maybe you won't notice a difference. However, if you're getting into editing a 4K project, chances are that you'll want to utilize some of these more powerful features and effects. And this means that you want a GPU that can accelerate those tasks and help you out. The good news, as it turns out, you don't absolutely need the most expensive GPU that you can buy. Almost any GPU will help a great deal. The more expensive ones will just maybe help a little bit more. And the last thing is storage volume. Most systems these days can probably get away with a single 1 terabyte SSD. This will allow you to install Windows, some normal programs, and probably 5 games or so, depending on size. If you run out of room, you can always just add on a second drive of similar size, and it's unlikely that you'll need really anything more than that. Well, my friends, welcome to the world of 4K video files. Depending on what file format you choose to shoot in and what your camera is capable of, you might need more space than you think. A regular 4K 30 FPS H.264 video file is about 330 megabytes per minute, or about a gigabyte every 3 minutes. If you're recording at 60 FPS, double that. If you're getting fancy with ProRes or some kind of RAW file format, you could easily fill up 3 gigs per minute. So plan on having a ton of extra storage space if you want to have any kind of an archive of your work. With those 5 main points out of the way though, the truth is that any reasonably capable system can be used for 4K editing. It's just a matter of what you can do with it and how fast you can do it. If you have a Ryzen 5 3600 system with 16 gigs of memory and an RX 580, you might have to make some compromises. You'll probably have to work with proxy files, your preview window will likely be at a quarter resolution, timeline scrubbing will be probably super laggy, and exporting could stretch out to 2 or 3 times the length of your actual project. For this system build, I chose to go with a 9900K, and yes, AMD does offer better options right now for editing in the 3900X and 3950X, but the 9900K does offer the benefit of quick sync support. And to be honest, this might be the last time that I'll have the opportunity to build with one while it's still relevant, so I did want to give it one last go. QuickSync leverages the power of the built-in iGPU on the processor itself, meaning that you essentially now have the CPU cores, your GPU cores, plus your integrated graphics to help speed up your exports. We won't get too much into the weeds here with QuickSync today, but the 9900K has been a strong choice for 4K video editing since it was released. Just keep in mind that you do have some great options right now at various price points. Your budget option here is probably the 3700X from AMD at $300. Then you could step up to the 9900K or 3900X at around $500. And from there, it does get a little silly. The 3950X is a 4K editing beast, and I did use one myself for a while, but it'll run you $750. If you have about double that budget, the Threadripper 3960X is the best choice right now. And if really there's no holds barred, you can drop $2,000 on a 3970X. The 3990X, however, is a no-go. Both the Windows scheduler and editing software are still really not sure what to do with 64 cores, so you get essentially the same performance as the 3970X, but you're spending twice as much. Intel HEDT at this point is basically very difficult to justify or recommend. So even though the 10980XE is good for editing, it won't outperform even the 3950X, and it's on what everybody assumes is probably a dead platform. We'll be dropping our 9900K into an Asus ROG Maximus 11 code. It's got a load of I/O, including built-in Wi-Fi and lots of onboard connectivity options. Plus, it looks kind of dope. We're not going to be messing around with memory today. This over here is a kit of HyperX Predator DDR4 3200, and these are 16 gig DIMMs, giving us a total of 64 gigabytes of RAM. Our GPU is going to be the Gigabyte RTX 2070 Super Gaming OC 8G. Like I said earlier, it's more important to have CUDA acceleration than to have the absolute most beastly graphics card, and the 2070 Super is a nice balance. We can still game with it if we want, and it will nicely accelerate our editing software as well without breaking the bank. Storage, on the other hand, well, that might actually break the bank. Because of what we discussed earlier, you're going to need a minimum of 3 drives in your 4K editing system. Our main OS drive is the HP EX950, a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD with sequential read and write speeds of about 3,000 megabytes per second that is priced fairly aggressively versus drives of comparable size and speed. This one right here is about $150, while the Samsung lineup is about $180 for the same specs. We'll be using one of those Samsung drives as a scratch disk, however, and usually you don't need more than 250 gigs for this function, so that's what we'll be going with. But to dump all of our video files on for long-term storage, how about a 14 terabyte Seagate Ironwolf hard drive? You might not need to go this big, but considering that I've had to basically continuously upgrade my storage solutions in the past few years, I would advise you to go as big as you can here to avoid running into space limitations sooner than you would think. Now for cooling, I did want to try out Fractal's new Celsius Plus S36 Prisma. This is a brand new 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler featuring Fractal Design's excellent Prisma fans and a glass-topped CPU block. Maybe the best feature of Fractal's Celsius line is the fact that the fan hub is on the radiator itself, minimizing the number of cables that you need to manage. We'll be filling out the rest of our case with 3 more Prisma fans and the Adjust R1 controller. Power will be provided by the Ion Plus 760 watt 80 plus platinum rated PSU. And this is the wattage that I'd probably recommend for this type of system. 650 watts would power this just fine, but with the sustained heavy loads that it will be under, and the fact that peak PSU efficiency is achieved at about 60 to 70% utilization, I think 750 watts or so is the best choice. And finally, the case will be building in the Lian Li LanCool 2, which has a number of cool features like the hot swap drive bays. All right, so we're already running way long here. Let's put these parts together and show you the result. So there's not much to say about this build process. I had used the LAN-Cool 2 in a prior build, and similar to that video, things went really well. I did install the hot swap drive mount to allow us to quickly pop in another hard drive down below if we needed to, but I declined to use the vertical GPU mount or the LED strip. The AIO did have to be mounted to the front of the chassis as the top only supports two 120mm fans, and I positioned the fans in a pull config in order to keep them as far away from the case front panel as possible. Under full GPU and CPU stress, temperatures were really solid as the GPU sat in the low 60s while the CPU was in the high 60s. This was under a full system stress test with both Cinebench and Unigine Heaven looping. I will say though that this was with the PWM setting enabled on the cooler, meaning that the fans did crank up pretty high and were audible. You could potentially play with that and use the auto setting instead. As a nice counterpoint to that though, Fractal's RGB ecosystem is awesome. It requires no third-party software, all of their components daisy chain together, and there's even a header on this radiator to make things super easy. Now as far as performance numbers, it is really difficult to show you how this system handles video editing. Usually when I'm doing a CPU review, I can use video editing as a direct comparison point because I could see how individual CPUs handle the same project and show you one versus the other to say which one of them is faster. But here there's no competitor, and if I showed you how fast the 9900K rendered a video file, it would have little significance to you or your specific workflow. Just know that I did fire up a 4K video project and scrub around on the timeline a bit and then export it, and things seem to be working as we would expect. In the interest of providing you with some performance data, however, here are some gaming benchmarks. You'll notice that, shockingly, a PC that's good at editing complex high-resolution timelines also happens to be good at gaming. This isn't really a coincidence, as we've basically taken a high-end gaming PC and juiced it up with all kinds of specific upgrades like more RAM and storage without taking anything away from its original performance. Also, you're looking at about a $2,900 build right here. That's right, kids, a good editing rig ain't cheap, even if you don't go huge on your CPU or GPU. Now, can you do it for less money? Of course. Like I said earlier, you can edit 4K footage on almost any modern machine. It's just maybe not going to be a great experience, and your exports are going to take painfully long. So if you're determined to take this journey, just know that eventually it kind of ends up here, with a gaming system that sports more memory and more storage than you've ever built with before. And if you want to use it to play Doom on as well, it'll be pretty good at that too. Let me just get out ahead of a few comments that I know will be sure to pop up on this video. Yes, I know I didn't discuss things like Quadros, EPYC CPUs, or dual Xeon systems. I just don't think that kind of discussion is relevant to this kind of video. If you're looking to build with Quadros, I don't think you're coming to my channel for advice. Also, for the AMD bros out there who will complain that I went Intel for this project, I don't know, get over it. AMD is the better option right now for almost everything, but that doesn't mean that Intel CPUs still don't have some utility. And specifically in video editing, I think the 9900K is still a good option. Is it the best option? No, it's not. But like I said earlier, there are a million different ways you could build a system like this. This just happens to be one of them. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you were able to take something away from this video. If you did, please consider getting subscribed so you don't miss any future content coming your way, and also hit that notification bell. As always, I will see you next time.